There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From the Fourth Line presented by Offside News. My name is Emma, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Marcie.
Hello.
Hello. We have two games to talk about,
Oh my gosh,
which
it's
is kind of a
unheard
crazy
of.
thing because I don't think we've had two games to talk about in about 3 weeks.
It's been a while. Too
Yeah,
long.
it's been yeah, so we have two games to talk about. So we should probably just get right into it because there's also we can talk about Four Nation rosters because those were announced yesterday. We can talk about a couple of other things, some news that happened today. And we kind of have a tough deadline because there's a Sens game at 7 and it's the pizza line reunion, and I have an emotional attachment to Jason Spezza.
Oh,
Love you, Jason.
who's
But
surprised?
yeah, just some injury, some overarching injury things. Jake McCabe is still a no. Who knows when he'll come back? Maybe he'll come back tomorrow against Washington.
Mm.
Actually, I think Craig Berube said that he's not playing tomorrow against Washington. I have to double check that, actually. Um, yeah. Jake McCabe is not available for tomorrow, so that puck definitely hit him harder than we thought.
Mm.
But yeah, so and also no Max Domi available tomorrow, or probably even for the rest of the weekend. Max Pacioretty also is not eligible to return off of IR until the 14th, so we won't see him until then. But moving right into the game, though, so I don't know if that also means that David Kampf potentially could come back tomorrow. I don't know. I do know that if he comes, there has to be some roster moves still that has to be made, I believe. But
Mm.
moving right on into the game, Chicago Blackhawks came into town. That meant a flurry of former Leafs. It was not, um, former Leaf Peter Mrazek in net, so there was a little bit of a blessing on this. However, though,
Mm.
it was um, it was uh, it was Soderblom who was in net, and he had last time he played Toronto, like last season,
Mm.
he had a shutout. So, or yeah, or at least played a very good game. Yeah, there was that one game where he both times he was in net
Mm.
against Toronto. Toronto lost. So, still reassuring as I shake my head
So
and say
reassuring.
no.
Oh dear.
Um, but yeah. And also there was a lot of former Leafs on the lineup. There's so many. Uh, Joey Anderson didn't play, so but that doesn't mean that TJ Brody, Tyler Bertuzzi, um, Bertuzzi, uh, Nick Foligno, and Ilya Mikheyev didn't. They played. So
Mm.
yeah, great, fantastic.
What more could we want?
Go team. But it doesn't matter. It was despite despite the Leafs being the better team, um, in this game, they were back to this really bad, not as badly as it was with Sheldon Keefe in charge, but they were still back to their habit of playing down to a team that's worse than them. I don't you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We saw it all the time, especially last season, I think more so than anything else. But was the Leafs playing a worse team, or a team not even worse as in slightly worse, but considerably worse than them, and
Mm.
playing down to their level, and then the team who is not as good comes up to it, has a really good game because they're able to take advantage of this. And while it didn't quite work out for Chicago, Stolarz had to work almost too hard for a game against not to say that
Yeah.
he shouldn't, and he should also like take a backseat. But like there are some saves that he made throughout this game where it was like he shouldn't have had to,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Right? Because the Leafs were just like not there. And like some of that does come from the fact that you're missing Jake McCabe, who him and Chris Tanev are a huge shutdown pair for the Leafs on the blue line. You know, you had Philip Myers up on your top pair with Morgan Riley. So then you had so it was Tanev and it was Tanev. Now my like brain feels broken. I have to hold on. It was Tanev and Ekman Larson. Tanev and Ekman Larson, and then you had Benoit and Timmins together on that one. But yeah. We'll talk about Philip Myers in a little bit because I do want to talk on him, like just on his game a little bit specifically. But at least in the first period, open up the scoring. Austin Matthews returns, and
Yippee!
that was just like a beautiful goal. I want to send you though a screenshot. Maybe I'll just like when I quote tweet this this like the tweet for this episode, I'll just make this like I'm gonna send you a picture on Twitter, but I'll just make this like my quote tweet because Austin Matthews is becoming this weird like sort of in the same way that like Ovi is able to stand at the left face-off circle with his like stick up like this and like no one will pay attention to him. I just want you to look where number 34 is like in this picture that I've sent you because Nylander is carrying the puck. All 5 Chicago Blackhawk players are all 5 Chicago Blackhawk players are like in Chicago zone, and not one of them is looking at Austin Matthews.
That is comical.
There's more guys on Matthew Nyes than there is on Austin Matthews, which is no shade to Matthew Nyes, but also like the other guy, like the guy you're ignoring is Austin Matthews.
Oh.
It's just like he sort of like just like sneaks in there. It's like, hey guys, I'm here too. Remember me? Now you do, and he scores.
Bet you missed me.
Bet you missed me. But like I don't know how you don't. Like I understand like they're wearing their next gen jerseys where like the numbers are kind of hard to read. Just because it's like black with like a white outline, but and that's on black, but like how do you miss it? Like Austin Matthews is 6'3" and like 220 pounds.
You can't exactly just miss him. Like
no, that's just yeah. But yeah, like, and I think this to loop back to like what I was saying about the fact that like the Leafs were like almost not cheating the win because they did like out. I don't want to say they didn't like not unanimously. That's not the word I'm looking for here. But they didn't like totally dominantly like outplay Chicago. Chicago still had very strong moments throughout this game. And it's not necessarily because the Leafs were making mistakes. The Leafs weren't just like their back checks were a little bit slower or like, you know, their passes were a little bit sloppier, which like isn't like the worst thing in the world, but like also you can kind of get away with it when it's like last in the league, Chicago Blackhawks. But when you do it to a team like Nashville, and I'll talk about the Nashville game in a little bit, it kind of makes the game a little bit closer than it should be. Yeah. And it's not necessarily like, oh my God, like this is the worst thing to ever happen to the Toronto Maple Leafs, like hit the panic button. It's just something that probably the team, and I'm sure Craig Berube will also be keeping in mind as they, I don't know, go through video or they have they have like pregame meetings or they just have meetings in general and they talk, you know, and talking and it'll just be the conversation within the locker room, which is totally fine. Yeah. We don't have to be overtly negative about the Toronto Maple Leafs when they've won 3 games in a row.
Yeah, like
we don't like they haven't like they in the past like they've come off of a really strong month of November and they're starting off the month of December pretty good. So yeah. It's a good start. John Tavares makes it 2-0 by being John Tavares and playing like it's 2018. And I'm not complaining.
Nope.
You wear that amulet, John, if it really helps you.
If it makes you work, you wear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, next.
Yeah, moving on. Now, this is like the only, I think, overtly like major mistake that the Leafs made. And even then, like, not the end of the world. And also as well, like the person who made it, it's like not, I even like Craig Berube didn't even see it as a big thing. But it was Lucas Reichel was able to was able to score. And that's just, like Philip Myers just had made one mistake. Like, I think this also was probably his only mistake in the game was just allowed a turnover to happen while he was trying to clear the Leaf zone. And that ended up turning into a scoring chance that Lucas Reichel was able to take advantage of. And this also, we were not escaped from a former Leaf point. It was just a secondary assist by TJ Brodie. And I think there was worse possible outcomes besides that.
Yes.
Like, worse things could have happened.
Hat trick that never was.
Yeah. Both him and Tyler Bertuzzi got like welcome back things, which I think was expected. But yeah, I was like, oh boy. But I like that. I think also as well, like Philip Myers had such a strong game, especially playing like top pair minutes with Morgan Rielly. Like he wasn't, on any of the special teams or anything, but he was still like played pretty strongly. And it's okay because like again, like you can't necessarily like I'm not gonna say like, oh, this is like he shouldn't be up there, like he shouldn't be playing, whatever, like take him out of the lineup. No, because all he did was allow essentially what could have been an innocuous turnover. It just also happened like the rest of the Leafs defensively were out of position a little bit and things happen. I don't even think like Joseph Woll, I don't think like I never even saw that shot either.
No.
It was a good shot from Lucas Reichel.
One of those things.
It's just one of those, it's one of those things where it's like we can't dwell on it too deeply because like in the grand all be all like of everything, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. You can tell that it's hit like December and you're a Leafs fan when like we're just like, it doesn't matter. We're so fine with this. Because come April, I think we'll be saying a very different tune.
Yep. Yeah.
But and like also as well, to really show how much this actually didn't matter, literally probably, I think what was it, like 24 seconds later, Leafs the other way, Fraser Minton just off of a really nice play by Connor Timmins, who banks it off the boards behind the net and puts it directly on Fraser Minton's stick, knocks it home for his second NHL goal. And I think also as well, he's like 4 points in 5 games.
Insane.
With that. So, yeah, like Fraser Minton, like he's looked, and we'll talk about Fraser Minton a little bit here, but like he's so like, and I think you can see it in the way that like the rest of the Leafs and like Craig Berube talks about him. He's so mature.
He's wise.
He's so wise and so mature in the way that he like goes about playing hockey and like goes about his game and goes about like his routine and everything, and he takes such admiration of the pros and like knows what it means to like make it in the NHL and like what you have to do and the work that you have to put in, and he's very vocal about that. And then I think also as well as like the way that the rest of the Leafs talk about him, they love the kid.
They love him.
And they're like, he's so wise and he's so grizzled and he's so mature in the way that he talks about hockey and the way that he talks about like things on the bench during a game, and just like he just has such a strong hockey IQ, and like that's the way they all talk about him. It's the way Craig Berube talks about him. I don't think Craig Berube could speak more highly
No.
of a young prospect than he is talking about Fraser Minton. Like he loves that kid,
Yeah, like
and like I
he's
think
just a little
everyone
old
else
man.
does.
He's just a little
He's
old man.
and I think like Craig Berube is gonna be hard pressed to send him back down to the
Mm.
Marlies once everyone comes back into the lineup and once the lineup is fully healthy. Because like when we're talking about like third line center, who would you rather have? Um, Max Domi or Fraser Minton?
I wonder.
But like I'm just like in terms of like also as well as like what it takes to be a third line center and kind of what you need to like kind of what that role requires, which is someone who's very defensively minded, someone who's
Mm.
physical still, and someone who still like has a scoring touch to them. I think like I'd take Fraser Minton over Max Domi for sure.
Any day.
And I know like you'd be like, well, he's still young. Like, yeah, he's still a 20-year-old kid, but I think also as well as like he has a mind of a player much older than him. And I think that
And
also
as
just
well,
proves that he's
it's
gonna
like,
grow into that role more and more as he like matures as a player for sure.
and as well, like whenever one thing that annoys me when people are like, oh, but he's so young. Well, it's like, yeah, he is young, but also, how long are you gonna be like, oh, he's so young, before it gets to the point where he's not being given the chance that he needs?
And I think also as well as like that's the issue that the Leafs have had with a lot of their I don't want to say mid-tier like they're not elite prospects. I think
Mm.
maybe that's the best way to put it. I think. Am I
Yeah, I
correct in
get
that
what
way?
I get what you mean. Like
Like I think there's a difference between like what they've done with like Austin Matthews and like Mason Marchment,
yeah.
right?
Mm.
Like you do have to let a player mature, especially when it's not, a first overall pick or things like that. And that does require a little bit of time and that does require time in the Marlies. But like you look at a player like Mason Marchment who like almost spent arguably like too long down with the Marlies. And then it got to the point where like you trade him away and you see him be given like trusted with NHL minutes and he's able
Mm.
to like thrive and become a really good player for Dallas because he was just given that time. And I think we've had this conversation before um on the podcast where it's like we've talked about the fact that like the Leafs just sometimes wait too long to trust
Mm.
prospects, and partly some of that is just in the way that like they've always been in a contention like position. So it's when you're in a team that's in contention, it's hard to trust younger players because you're
Mm.
all like, not that every game matters, but it's just like the maturity level of the team is so much higher than a team that's like not always in contention.
Yeah.
Because like as soon as the Leafs like got Austin Matthews and he came to the NHL and he started playing for the Leafs, which literally was the season after he drafted, the Leafs have made the playoffs every single year since. And so that's been really hard to then try and trust your young prospects. In the past, it's what they've always like struggled with is trusting young prospects when they bring them into the NHL when they're
Mm.
always a playoff team, because you don't see a lot of playoff teams doing that with like their like mid-tier young prospects, right? Because it
Yeah.
just like you're worried. And I think now because of all the injuries that they've had in their forward group, like the Leafs had no other choice to do this but to trust guys like Fraser Minton, to trust guys like Nikita Gorbenkin. And so they're forced into
Mm.
this situation and you can see how well it works out for them,
Yeah.
right? Because like Nikita Gorbenkin, like that fourth line tonight of like Connor Dewar, it was that night, like the fourth line, sorry, not tonight, just don't play tonight,
I
but
was gonna
like
say what?
the fourth line of like with like it was Grabankin, Dewar, and it was Nylander against Chicago, and spoiler alert, it was Reeves against Nashville, which we'll get into that. But
Mm.
yeah, just those sorts of things. And like that's my opinion on Fraser Minton is like I'm going to say like he I'm not gonna say like he didn't need the time with the Marlies. He definitely did. He was coming off of a sprained ankle, high ankle sprain. And like I'm not gonna say like, and I'm going, but and maybe he does need a little bit more time with the Marlies, but I do think a lot of people were like, oh, we need to trade for a third line center. I don't think we necessarily do. I think that
No.
depth. I think a large thing with Leaf fans for a long time is that the failure to look into the depth that's available within the like our own organization, and some of that is just because of and some of that is just because like I'm trying to. Some of that is. Hold on. My brain moved too fast, and I got distracted by a picture of Claude Giroux in a cowboy hat. So now my brain is somewhere else. I will send it to you. Don't
Thank
worry.
you. For science,
but it's more so insane. Like, I think sometimes that always hasn't been a luxury that the Leafs have had. I know they always haven't had like really deep prospect pockets, but some of that is just because of like, again, when it's a team that you're always in contention, you're always in a playoff position, you don't have a lot of capital to work with in terms of like the depth within your own organization, because you're just never really afforded the chance to do that because you constantly have to like build a ready now team essentially. Because the Leafs, like that's I think, and you know what, I can have my own comments on that, and I could probably go on forever about like not that just like the implications and the effect that like having when Austin Matthews came to the Leafs were suddenly a playoff team, and like kind of what that means and what that has done to the organization. But now we have this chance where we have this really deep prospect pool, and it's like, not necessarily on the blue line as much as like in the forward group, and it's especially in net. I don't think we've had this depth to like the Leafs like crease in a long time. It's been a long time. It's like I have never remembered a point like in Leafs history as a fan, like growing up watching the Leafs always, where like we've had this strong of a goalie system all the way up and through like up and down the organization. Not just at the NHL level, but even so at the NHL level. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yes, all this to say, Fraserman is a potential solution for a third line center that you've been looking for. And honestly, if it comes down to, and we see this increased like success that Fraser Minten is having on the ice with the Leafs, and he continues to get better as he does every single game, and he continues to raise his game as he does every single game, I would put him at 3C in the playoffs over Max Domi.
Yeah.
Come
because
April.
You know what? In the nicest way possible, no offense, Max Domi, we can trust Fraser Minten, and we know we can. Like it's not like a guaranteed, but I'd be a lot.
You can trust him in like
worried.
Maybe like you can.
He's consistent.
You can trust him in the way of like you like sometimes I know there's some people be like, I don't know if I can trust him offensively. You can trust him defensively, which is more so what you want your third line to be, like what you want to be able to trust them with. Is that a little bit more of a defensive play, which is something that Max Domi does not bring, like notably does not bring to a lineup, is defensive prowess. And especially if you're going to put him with like Nick Robertson. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
who also as well, like, yeah, if you're gonna do some like kid line thing as they were doing at the end of the game against Nashville with like it was like him, Holmberg, and Robertson, like you don't get the defensive comes from Fraser Minten on that line. So you can't put Max Domi on that line and then feel safe to trust them in your own zone.
No.
But yeah. Moving on. We like stop mid-game to talk about Fraser Minten for like 10 minutes, as we should. As we should. But yeah, Matthew Nyes with the empty netter to cap off the game. He had such a strong game. He's been having continuous strong games throughout the season. I don't think there's much more we can say in praise of Matthew Nyes that we haven't already said this season before on the show, but yeah.
Slay.
And like, sorry, the Leafs goaltending has been so strong as of late and has been so strong this season that it's just
Incredible.
become like a footnote for every game to be like, oh, by the way, the goaltending was really good as always.
It's like it's nice to be at this time of year and not be having a goalie crisis.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Like it's just it's just great.
Yeah. I will say, like, there's some little things, and I know Craig Berube was gonna be like, oh, you know, like I don't want to be quick, you know, yes, we won 4-1, but like I'm not gonna be quick to like praise the game and like be like this was a good win for us. We're gonna look over some things at video tomorrow, which is like fair, which is fair, which I agree with him.
There's always a
Take the
takeaway
2 points, take the 2 points, you know, celebrate the fact you got 2 points, you know, celebrate that some aspects of the game was really good, and review everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to Toronto and Nashville. Just Poole gets a start. It feels like we're going a little bit of a back-to-back, like alternating every now and then here and there, just depending on certain things. But yes, so just Poole gets a start against UC Soros. Reeves is back in the lineup after serving his suspension, which I will take this time now to talk about the Ryan Reeves suspension comments because I put out a tweet that I would, and I have opinions.
Take the floor.
I gotta just find the tweet for a sec. It requires me going back through a little thing. But yes, Ryan Reeves. This is via Luke Fox for Sportsnet. Ryan Reeves on Darnell Nurse's comments. This is just about the comments that Darnell Nurse made immediately following his hit, where he said that he essentially criticized Ryan Reed for the hit. The only truth that he spoke was, I go out there to inflict pain. That's a fact, and that's not going to stop. But I'm going to continue to do it legally. I'm going to keep playing hard, if not harder, now, and keep burying guys.
Well then.
So I'm just gonna let everyone, just sit with that for a second.
Let us thinking.
Sit with that for a second. Yeah. And realize essentially what Ryan Reeves admitted to is that his main purpose when he goes out to play hockey is to make people hurt, which I get it. That's very much what the enforcer does. I also think we have to acknowledge the fact that it is not 1994 anymore. You do not need an enforcer on your roster necessarily. You just need a team that stands up for each other. And you can do that by not having necessarily a classic enforcer like you do with Ryan Reeves. See both Tkachuk brothers. Yes, I have my own comments on Brady Tkachuk specifically. You can read my son's recaps for those. I think I was very clear in my last one. But he does go out and inflict pain because I feel in pain every time I have to watch him skate on the ice. So, like, good job, Ryan Reeves, you're doing that. But, like, I just think that is, like, not a terrible way. I think that's just, like, not that it's a terrible, like, why would you say that? Why would you admit to that? That then is, of course, then admitting, like, intent that you wanted to hurt Darnell Nurse.
Why?
On such a nothing puck possession. Like, it's the thing where it was like, it wasn't in retaliation of like anything. It was just, here's Darnell Nurse carrying the puck around the back of the net in his own zone. And here comes Ryan Reeves to blow his freaking head off.
Well, I suppose he didn't really feel like he had much of a choice because, what can you do when you're not very good at hockey? But like, also, my guy, come on. A, don't do that. B, don't admit to it. Like, what are you doing? Ugh. This is just another instance of Ryan Reeves giving me a headache. And he will continue to do so for too long. But, ugh.
I just like it's a thing where it's like I'm so tired of like and not that I'm tired of the physicality in hockey. In fact, because like part of what drew me to hockey as a fan when I was like 6 was the physicality in hockey. It was fun to watch.
Hmm,
It's not fun to watch guys get their heads blown off. It's more fun to
no.
watch guys like safely slam each other into the boards. And I think there's a difference. And I also think that there needs to be a greater care placed on head contact, which
Hmm,
BU just recently came out with a study on that I have yet the reason why I'm not really talking about it in this episode is because I actually haven't had the time to like read it over. It's a
hmm.
study all about the effects of CTE and our Washington Capitals one of Washington Capitals like go-to correspondent because she's a Washington Capitals fan, Michelle, who writes for us at Offside, uh, did the review for that study, which is pretty cool because she works in that lab.
Oh,
So yeah.
yeah.
So like show that out, but like I go like check it out. But I just haven't the reason why we're not really talking about it in depth and I wanted to is just I have not had the time. It's final season for me.
Been a
I
busy
have not had the time
week.
to go over and like read over that and I will at some point probably
Hmm.
this weekend and when I have a little bit more room to breathe in that aspect. Um but yeah, uh that's what I have to say about the Ryan Reeves. I like was gonna. I think I was probably had a lot more, but then I think I calmed down because the Leafs had 2 wins, and then I wasn't as mad anymore. But I'm still
Hmm.
mad. I still
Oh
think
yeah,
like what he said was like dumb, and I think that
so
like
stupid.
yeah, yeah, essentially. Um, we can move on to Toronto and Nashville. Well, back to the game actually. Sorry, not move on to. I already started that conversation, but Reeves was back in the lineup with Gurbankin and Dewar. And that leaves Alex Nylander as the odd man out, sitting healthy scratch for this game. It was a slow start, and the Leafs continued to play down to their opponent, which you could see definitely in this game for sure, and also as well, not just like the stress of it, but like not that like I was stressed. It was like it had a greater effect
Hmm.
because like you were going up against UC Saros, who is a very good goalie,
Yeah.
and therefore cheating offense is not going to work.
No.
And then and like it's a thing too where it was like this game was a 1-0 game for too long because the Leafs played down to
Hmm.
Nashville. And it's like the reason why it was a 1-0 game because of the flukiest goal I have ever seen in my entire life.
So.
Um Jonathan March so takes a shot. It goes off of the dasher. I think it takes a weird bounce off the dash or like the glass or something where it then like goes like straight up
Hmm.
and comes down, and no one except for Jonathan Marchessault knows where this puck is. Joseph Wool doesn't know where it is. I probably wouldn't trust Joseph Wool to be playing outfield for the Toronto Blue Jays anytime soon. But yeah, puck goes up, Joseph Wool loses it. It lands directly in front of Joseph Wool. Joseph Wool doesn't know where it is. Jonathan Marchessault knows where it is, and Jonathan Marchessault take advantage of it and shoots it home for a goal. And I think even Joseph Wool himself put it best, where he was like, "I just laughed it off, forgot about it. You can't really
Yeah.
dwell too much on those sort of things because it's so like it was kind of a fluke goal." So
Hmm. Like you can't deep it too much.
No, and I think it's better, especially if you're the goalie as well, to just sort of like forget
Mm.
about it and like
Yeah.
move on, and not dwell on essentially the craziest bounce off of. I think it was the dasher it went off of, or it was off the glass, or like it was something where it just took a weird
Mm.
bounce. But yeah, and then the rest of the game, essentially for the next like 2 periods, is incredibly boring. It's so boring. I
It was a
almost fell
quiet.
asleep. It was that boring.
Yeah, I was just kind of sat doing work because I was
Oh,
like,
I was playing Block Blast on my phone.
"Is that your
Not
game of
to
the
be
week?"
that's well, I told you about this one. After I came home from Thanksgiving, it's been my game of the week. It's replaced Fashion Makeover.
But how will the people get their makeovers now? What will they do?
Uh, I got stuck on a level for too long and it I got bored and then I discovered Block Blast and now I'm having really fun with Block Blast.
I'm kind of tempted to get back into Candy Crush. I feel like I
Let's
should
have a
bring.
whole segment that's just like games we get it like our little games that we're playing. Games on our phone.
Yeah, we should do that next time the Leafs have like no games. Don't know what to talk
Which will
about. I
not
hate
be
this
until
really going on my
February.
phone.
Which will not be until February. We've had this discussion.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. That gives us till
Um,
February to test out all the games.
um, but yeah, the rest of the game's boring. Right at the end of the second period, Brube puts Marner and Matthews back together, and it pays off
Would you
in the
look at
third with
that?
like 30 seconds into the third period. I have this written down as I have it all caps, and then I have little hearts next to his name. It just says Austin Matthews.
Real.
Like, oh, doodle doodle. AM34, heart heart.
Oh
Um,
no.
but yeah, I think because I know some people were saying like, and these people do not what are dumb. The people who are saying, well, they finally scored because like Brube put like they like put Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner back together, and that means that that Toronto Maple Leafs are a one-line team because they can only score when those two are together. No,
It
I
just
think
helps.
that it just me. I just think that it shows the versatility of the Leafs forward group that
Hmm.
you can essentially build about 6 different line combinations with the group, like the same group of like three guy about of like your top six.
Yeah.
Like you can have fun with like the Leafs forward group and still put together a really competitive team. And it's the fact that like, hey, halfway through a game, if the like whatever, if like Marner and Tavares aren't working together, it's just like something's not clicking, or it's like Nylander and Matthews aren't getting any good chances, or whatever it is. You can just put like you can then throw Marner up with um with with Matthew Nyes, and you can then move some things around as well, so that you have like Minton, um, Holmberg, and like Robertson together, and you can put that line out there. And it's like a whole thing where you can like move pieces around your little like it's a lineup card that's not written in Sharpie, essentially, is probably what I'm trying to get into.
Yeah.
You have options, and I know Craig Berube is not the first guy to go. Like, he won't be like the first thing he will reach for is not always going to necessarily be the line blender. He is not Sheldon Keefe, but um, but you do have those options where you can mess
Hmm.
around with that for sure. Um, and it works,
Yeah.
obviously, because Austin Matthews scored. And it was a beautiful goal where it was the two of them, and you could tell like that was just like those two guys out there and the chemistry that they have, and
Hmm.
it pays off. Mitch Marner makes a gorgeous play, passes it off to Matthews with a pretty pass, and it just goes in and it's wonderful.
It's
Um,
perfect.
yeah, Austin Matthews also then continues to further embarrass the Nashville Predators with like dangling through their defense and then tucking one in
Things we love
behind
to
UC
see.
Saros like that. Oh, and it's not even the grossest goal of the game.
No, it's brilliant.
It's not even the grossest goal of the game. William Nylander on the power play. I have this one written down as just gross. ew in all caps. Like, ew. It was disgusting. It was Leafs are on the power play. Matthew Nyes with the like behind the back through the legs pass to William Nylander that just is perfectly in the right spot.
Incredible.
And William Nylander has nothing to shoot at but net. Nothing but net. And he doesn't waste the opportunity, make it 3-1. Nashville Predators get another one in there before the end of the game. And Joseph Woll, again, the goaltending of the game becomes a footnote because Joseph Woll had a great game, made some really great saves, like some really good ones. And yeah. And it's a footnote at this game. Like, that's the thing, is that is a footnote on this game. That's how good the Leafs goaltending has gotten, that it's not like a big part of the story of the game when he has a good game.
It's like,
you know what I mean?
He's had a good game. Like, nice one.
It's more of a story when the goaltending isn't performing well, and it hasn't for a long time this season. Like, it's been a while since we've had to worry about goaltending. And even then it was because Joseph Woll was coming back from injury, and now he's back and it's whatever.
Fine. All is well.
Fine. All is, yeah, literally. But yeah, just fantastic. Brilliant. Leafs play tomorrow night against Washington. So that'll be we'll be playing against Rasmus Sandin. I think it's funny, Craig Berube, if you're listening to this, to put Alex Nylander in the lineup for that game. Just saying. That is all. Just adding my my 2 cents to that conversation. And I think Randy would kill me if they heard me say this.
Oh yeah.
I'll send it to them anyways, it's fine.
It's fine. They'll love it. They'll have fun. But and I don't know whether I'm gonna get to watch tomorrow's game either.
I won't, at least not live, because
I'll watch it back.
I am. Yeah, I'll try to watch. I'll try and watch it back. I will not get to see it live because I am at. That moves us into our next topic that I was going to talk about after this. But I am going to the PWHL game tomorrow at the CTC between Ottawa and Montreal. So
exciting.
But yeah, so we'll see how tomorrow's game goes. I will assume Stollards gets the start because then they do a back-to-back with travel, which brings us into our next conversation topic. The games before our next episode, Leafs play tomorrow in against Washington at home. And then which they will not have Jake McCabe for, or Max Domi, or David Kampf, I'm assuming. And then they will play on Saturday away for Hockey Night in Canada against the Pittsburgh Penguins and Michael Bunting, which maybe I'm a little bit, not that I'm glad, but like, Max, I would like to see what happens with Michael Bunting and Nikita Grabankin. I would like to see that very, very badly. I mean, this whole team as well is like, has, not that I've said that they've gotten grittier, but, or that it's like, that was necessarily an issue of the team before, or like as a negative. Like, I'm not saying this as an opportunity to talk trash on Mitch Marner, because I think Mitch Marner can do no wrong, and he's had 5 assists in the last 2 games. Throwing that out there.
Just saying.
That's insane, by the way. Just saying. 5 points in 2 games.
The man's not real.
Just putting that fact out there. But there was a point against the game in Nashville where Dehe takes a chop at Joseph Woll after the whistle, and Marner is like right in there to get after him. And it just reminds me of like kind of how he played when he was in juniors, which I think a lot of, newer Leaf fans forget about, is like he was annoying. And it was like a thing where like multiple people who would like play with him for Team Canada or played against him in juniors would say that he was annoying. Like got to the point where then when it was at World Juniors that like guys like Connor McDavid or like or Lawson Krause or Strome, who then he played with at World Juniors, were like, oh, we're happy to have him on our team so that I don't have to play against him because I don't like playing against him because he's annoying and like is a pest, but also is really good. And I think that's an aspect of his game that probably due to, some coach shit, like whoever was, about like, coaches release and things like that about what they wanted to prioritize with his game, kind of like people forget was an aspect of his game when he got drafted. And I think it would be really fun if we saw him bring that out a little bit more with his game.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like he has to forego all of his like high skill abilities, but I do think it would be fun if he like got into it a little bit.
As a treat.
As a treat for me.
For me.
But yeah, so that's what's on the docket for the Leafs coming up before our next episode on Monday. And then we get to go into everything else. We can talk. I'm just eyeing the time a little bit. We got about a half hour, so we're good. We'll talk about PWHL. It was opening weekend, or at least now all the teams have played. Not all the teams have played their home opener. New York is not until like 2 weeks from now, or like a week and a bit from now.
Oh.
But most teams have played at least 2 games, I believe. Yes. And it's been fun. I know we talked about the jerseys a little bit, but seeing them in game action is really, really nice. I did go to the Ottawa Chargers home opener on Tuesday, and that was really, really fun. Ottawa won against Toronto, and it was exciting. Like the atmosphere there is just really great, and I know I'm now about to make Marcie feel really jealous when I say like if you have the opportunity or if you ever find yourself in the chance or like with the free time or the ability to go to a PWHL game, I highly recommend you go to it. Marcie's giving me a thumbs down because she cannot go to a PWHL game very easily.
2 thumbs down.
But
if I could, I would.
Just like the atmosphere there is so fun. The crowds are so great. Like I went with my radio co-host Mary to the game. Listen to Timeout on CHUO every Wednesday at 1. But I went to the game with Mary and we had such a fun time. And like even then it's like the atmosphere is so great. I find that the fans that are there, it's such a higher like diversity of ages and genders and race and everything. Like there's just the fans that are there, it's just a more diverse group of fans, and it was really fun. The atmosphere was incredible. The hockey was pretty great. Ottawa played a pretty solid game. I mean, there's definitely things they can work on, but I think they have a chance to make the playoffs this year. At least one Ottawa team's got to do it.
Please, for your sake.
For my sake. Although, yeah. But yeah, so definitely like recommend that you guys check out or try to catch a game or two. But yeah, it's a fun game. At least watch them as well because it's such great hockey. If you're outside of Canada, you can still watch all the games on YouTube. Yay. If you are in Canada, there is a broadcast schedule, but essentially boils down to most games are on TSN, except for the Tuesday games, which are on Prime, and the Saturday games, which are on CBC. And yeah. And if you're located within New England and New York State, there are some games that are getting broadcasted on those regional broadcasters, like MSN and MSGN, I believe. I got those. I do not think I got those acronyms right.
Close enough.
But if you like, the regional broadcasters for the Bruins and New York Rangers, whatever they are, I don't know. But yeah, so moving on to then the other announcement, another announcement from this week. The Four Nation roster, the rosters for the Four Nation Faceoff. I keep calling it Four Nations. That is not it. That is a rugby tournament. It's called Four Nations Faceoff, which like, all right, we could have come up with a team that's not so like that gets when it gets shortened, it's not like a rugby tournament, but Four Nations Faceoff, those rosters were announced. Offside put together a list of all the rosters in one article. So if you need one solid source, that's on a really great website. I will link it in the show notes for this episode. But essentially, I don't want to like stand here and like list through all of the rosters because that would take forever and that would be incredibly boring of me just sitting here and going, and defense for Team Sweden. Victor Hedman, Gustav Forsling, Erik Karlsson. Like, I'm not going to do that to you guys. But I am going to talk, I think I will ask you first. Do you have any players off of any of the four teams who you think were, like, any notable snubs, anything like that, who you thought, would have thought that they would have made the team?
Dylan Strome.
Yeah, Dylan Strome was one of them where I was like, I'm surprised. And I think, like, some people, there was one guy where I was like, guys, like, it was Brian Rust, for, I believe he's American, for Team USA, who some people were saying he's a snub. But, like, I think there's a little bit of you have to think about, yeah, because he's from Michigan, but I think you have to think about, like, the fact of, it's not so much a question of who's good now, it is a question of who's going to be good in February. Right? So you have to then do a little bit of, and I'm not going to say like Dylan Strome won't be good in February. I do think he would be good in February. I do also think that he's one of those top guys who is probably like, in case of emergency, like, or in case of an injury or anything like that, who would get like one of the first calls for sure. I think I would definitely have him higher on my list than Tom Wilson. That's for sure. I don't know what we're doing when we're pretending, like, and I think some of this is because for years, Tom Wilson has been the Caps, like, all-star game guy instead of Ovi, where it's like, I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. Like, if there was, like, I think I was even saying this last year, and we talked about this last year when we were talking about the all-star game rosters, that I was like, I don't think it should be Tom Wilson. I think it should have been Dylan Strome last year. Dylan's like just a better player than Tom Wilson. And so to all the people who are like, well, Tom Wilson, it's the grit. It's that. I'm like, you also need like
good hockey.
That's what you have Sam Bennett for, who's a better hate to compliment Sam Bennett here. Everyone knows how I feel about Sam Bennett, but like I think he brings like the physicality element that people really wanted from Dylan Strome with a higher offensive output. And more of and also like better defensively as well, I believe. That's just my opinion. But for me as well, like there's some guys where I'm like, no, I don't think that Zach Hyman should have been kept off. I think last year was a fluke of a season for him. And I think people need to realize that, like, I think Toronto is going to build a little bit stronger of a defensive roster. Not to say that they don't have the high-end offensive skill, because they do. I mean, any team where you have Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, and Mitch Marner on it,
you're gonna do
and Nathan
all right.
McKinnon, Cale Makar, like, I think you're gonna do all right offensively, but in terms of, like, some of the other names that you're bringing where someone was like, oh, maybe I wouldn't necessarily, like, go with them, it's a little bit different because you have to look at who's in net for Canada, and it's Jordan Binnington, Aiden Hill, and Sam Montembeault, which I think that we need to move on from Jordan Binnington. Like, I understand he's been a like Team Canada's goalie at Worlds for years, and that's just because the St. Louis Blues do not make the playoffs. But I think we need to stop
Mm,
I think we need to stop using that as like a reason for you to pick him over certain guys. Like, I thought like
yeah.
Logan Thompson,
Hmm.
and maybe he is like a goalie gets hurt between now and February because there's still a lot of NHL hockey to play. You never know what might happen. A guy gets hurt and you have to pick your and a goalie. Like, maybe Logan Thompson is that fourth goalie, and maybe, there is some worry because he did have like the Washington Capitals did have such a great start to a season that you're worried there's a little bit of that there. But I maybe would take him over Jordan Binnington, and that's just because like I am far less stressed when I watch Logan Thompson play in net than I do when I watch Jordan Binnington.
Yeah.
But and I think and for when it comes to the question of like, and this is also a thing, like anyone who's been asked when it comes to like from Team Canada, whether it be John Cooper, whether it be Don Sweeney, when it comes to like who is your starter in net, they've kind of avoided the question, and that's because the answer is it is whoever has the hottest hand come February.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see what happened, like how Sam
Hmm.
Montembeault does in front of like a competent blue line. That's absolutely for sure. My favorite thing is that people talk about Sam Montembeault and calling him a diversity hire because he's the only Quebecois player on the roster. Was funny.
Oh dear. What a giggle.
I laughed just a little bit, but yeah. Again, like these things can change. I will say this is definitely you can definitely see the Kyle Dubas influence in this roster, that's for sure.
Just a little bit. Just a bit.
But yeah, I am excited. This is going to be like John Cooper is going to coach this team, and I'm excited about that
Mm.
because I love John Cooper, hate playing against him. But yeah, even like Team USA, I think has a little bit more question marks when it comes to especially their forward group. Their defense, gross in the way of like it's scary. I'm sorry. Faber, Fox, Hannafin, Hughes, Slavin, Werenski, and McAvoy.
Down.
Yeah. But their forward group for me, a little bit more questions in the form of Nelson, Trocheck, and Kreider. And that's just mostly like Nelson for and like I know he's good offensively, and I know like people often forget about how good he is offensively because he plays for like the offensive black hole, which is the New York Islanders.
Mm.
But like there's gotta be guys like American born players who you can take. Like, I don't know, like I'm surprised, like, you're not taking like a Cole Caulfield or like a Tage Thompson, Jason Robertson sort of thing. Especially because you don't have like you don't necessarily have to have the strongest defensive team defensively because your goaltending is so good when you're Team
Mm.
USA. You have Hellebuck, Ottinger, Swayman.
Not bad.
Who wouldn't want, right? Right?
I can't complain.
But yeah, and I don't know. I just would have maybe taken some guys who are a little bit higher end defensively, or, maybe I know, like, again, you have to think about who's going to be good in February, but like, New York Rangers have had a rough season all year.
Mm.
I don't know, like, maybe Chris Kreider, like, it's a thing where it's like, I don't know why you would take, like, Kreider and Trocheck. Maybe it'll be really good by February. Maybe I'll be eating my words, but that's just me. And in the context of the Toronto Maple Leafs, there are 4 Maple Leafs coming, or at least named, to Four Nation Faceoffs rosters right now. It is William Nylander, Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner. And for Finland, it is Jani Hankaba,
Just sure.
who needs some time because he got a procedure done on his knee this week, and we will probably not see him for a little bit, according to Craig Berube.
What's new?
It is like that dragon head meme. You know which
Yeah,
one I'm talking about.
I was just thinking about that.
Where it's like the 4 dragons lined up.
Oh my god.
And it's like Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, and then Danny Hankapää. And I think like some of that is like Finland essentially like does not have the depth that some of the other countries do, especially on the blue line. It literally is like Miro Heiskanen and like the guys. Yeah. Like there's not a lot there. I mean, their goalies are going to be pretty good. Forward group looks pretty solid, but it is like they definitely aren't as strong of a roster as like Sweden, USA, and Canada are, and that's just because like lack of numbers. But yeah, so Yanni Hankapää named to the roster. The thing is like Toronto put out a post and they were like the like 4 nations, and it's like they are doing, and it's like the 4 of them on the same graphic, and I'm like, you are doing Hankapää like so dirty with that, and it's not his fault.
Oh.
So hopefully he's healthy come February. But yeah, moving on to talk about guys who are not healthy. Unfortunate and pretty major blow to the Dallas Stars is Tyler Seguin will miss 4 to 6 months due to having to have surgery. And I want to make sure I get this thing right because I had to Google this. He had surgery today to repair in New York to repair a left side FAI, which is a femoral acetabular impingement, and the left side hip labrum. And he is expected to miss 4 to 6 months, which will essentially take him until April. Maybe he will be good to go for the playoffs. But yeah, so essentially it is hip surgery. According to Google, it is a condition in which extra bone grows along one or both of the bones that form the hip joint, and they become abnormally shaped, causing them to rub together, and it can damage the hip's cartilage and labrum, hence probably also the repair being done to his labrum. I am not a med student. I Googled that. So that is just the general definition. I am saying nothing more except for that is incredibly unfortunate and sounds also incredibly painful as someone with hip issues. Yeah.
Not good.
So that's something. Sucks. And then moving on to, sorry, I'm like looking at the time and I'm like, the Sens game starts at 7 and I'm like, I don't want to.
We can whiz through. We can whiz through
Chicago firing their head coach.
Whoa! No way!
So today, literally like just before we started recording, just before we started recording, it was announced that Chicago fired Luke Richardson after starting the season off with like an 8-16-2 record. Fires their head coach, replaces him with the head coach of the their AHL affiliate, the Rockford Ice Dogs. Anders Sorensen. He's Swedish. He has a son who played a season in the CCHL in Ottawa, and that is all I know about him. But you know that Offside's Chicago beat reporter Cody is very happy about this news and has the past like 2 hours very, very happy about this while complaining about how he has to rewrite his entire recap because of this news. So, but Cody has been calling for Luke Richardson to get fired in the Offside work chat for like months at this point. So this is so well deserved for Cody. But yeah, so also if you're keeping note, and you're keeping track at home, kids, that is the third coach that has been fired this season and that we've talked about their firing on the show. I know people are keeping track because this was a big stat for us last year.
It was a huge step for us last year.
It got to the point where we were better than the Leafs playoff power play.
But yeah. Another coach gets fired. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a shock.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite thing is when you just like told me like as I joined the call, you were like, by the way. I was like, yep, that checks out. That sounds about right.
Yeah. So we will so according to Elliot Freeman, the current plan for Chicago is to ride with the interim coach until the end to finish off the year with the interim coach and then make decisions, aka when the market opens up, because last year's slew of coaches firings have definitely cleared the bench when it comes to options, because currently you have Jay Woodcroft, St. Louis's old coach. I don't remember his name. And that's it. For coaching solutions that make sense before someone throws out Mike Babcock's fucking name. So we will see, potentially, depending on how Nashville does tonight. It could also be it could also be Andrew Burnett, who is Nashville's head coach. We'll see how they do against Montreal tonight. Who knows?
Yeah. So a lot of what ifs. But yeah. It's crazy.
But yeah. So they're another coach fire. I don't know. Like, it's good. I hope then there's some stability to their lines and it's not just like musical chairs with whoever plays with Connor Bedard. I also hope that Connor Bedard gets put on the right wing, because anyone who's seen any of his World Junior highlights knows that's where you should be playing him.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
but we will
that
end the
makes
show
too much
here.
sense.
Yeah. No, exactly. But we will end the show here because Sen's Pizza Line reunion is tonight and emotional attachment to Jason Spezza.
Yeah.
But we will be back on Monday to talk about 2 more Leaf games. But in the meantime, you can go follow Offside News on all social platforms at Offside News Co. You can also go read the flurry of articles that are always going up over at offsidenewsco.com. There was one that went up today that was that not went up today. No, there was one that's where you can go find a list of all the Four Nations rosters. It's on offsidenewsco.com. There's always articles going up there. You can follow the show on Twitter at From the Fourth Line. That's fourth with the number 4TH, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow the two of us on Twitter if you really miss us between episodes and think that we're absolutely hilarious, because we are, at 60 Leaves for Marcie and at Pearby1 for myself. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back on Monday with another episode to discuss more Leafs hockey and everything else that goes on in the hockey world. Thank you guys so much for listening, and go Leafs go!
Go Leafs go!